buzz in this room. My goodness, that makes me happy for the next 2 days. I really hope that you had a good lunch break, because what you may not have known is that you were part of a gargantuan social experiment. Everybody's looking at me with scared faces. Well, if you were in here and listened to Manas Chawla finish that last panel, that would have been no news to you, because what you were supposed to do at lunch is do your homework, which is to have lots of intergenerational conversations. Because we heard from our conference co-chair, Roshni, this morning, that effective, resilient, sometimes disruptive intergenerational leadership is the greatest scarcity that we face today. And don't you all want to be part of that solution in these 2 days? Okay, before you applaud yourself, let's put this to the test. So we're going to bring the house lights up for a minute, and I want you to look to the right and left of you to see if you can break through the social animal attitude of always being with like-minded people. Can you just Okay. So is the person next to you the same generation as you? No? Aha! Okay, you see, I've already won by proximity. No, but to be honest, we can bring the house lights back down. Thank you, Thomas. Not that I'm comparing between years, but you guys are off to a good start. Last year's bunch needed a little bit more work. So for the next 2 days, day and a half, your job is 5 intergenerational conversations. And if you like, you can make yourself a checklist, but we expect no less here at HSG.
Thank you, Catherine, also for this experience, and I hope you're all gonna enjoy those 5 conversations at least. So I would like to talk about what's at the core of this year's topic, confronting scarcity. Looking ahead, long-term challenges such as climate change, demographic shifts, and geopolitical uncertainties signal a more fundamental shift to an economy defined by different types of scarcity. In the many conversations the student of the ISC had with you, the St. Gallen Symposium community throughout the year, a lack of talent and available workforce, particularly in Asia and in Europe, came up time and time again.
So yes, our next session is all about people. It's about demographic change. It's about harnessing some of the things that we've known fundamentally for 2 decades, that in Asia and Europe, as Sophia said, we have aging societies, and to the global south, we have, and we heard this morning from Lindiwe, a youth bulge that is looking for opportunities, that's looking for training, that's looking to change the world of work. But we also heard this morning that attitudes toward the world of work are changing generation to generation. Younger workers want different things, and a lack of workforce, we heard that this morning too, is having a real impact on our industrial base. I spoke a week and a half ago at the Deutsche Bankentag, and what were we discussing there but this exact same problem? And I want to give you a little factoid. On average, take away vacations and illness-related absences, Germans work 26.5 hours a week. And when we ask ourselves, is Germany the sick man of Europe? Maybe that has something to do with those numbers, because in Singapore, as we will hear in our next panel, that average working time is 44 hours a week, right? So how can we preserve, as Europeans, our competitiveness, expand on that competitiveness, as Enrico Letta would have us do, given these conditions, right? How do we future-proof our skills? How do we win talents? But also, how do we combine work with care so that we bring more and more capable, highly educated women into the world of work, because God knows they're out there, they want to be in the future of work, they want to be in this international talent pool and work toward future competitiveness. So with all these large questions, what might we learn from one another? How can we accelerate access to labor, to talent, and position ourselves such that not only we preserve our competitiveness, but we work toward greater global talent equity in the world? That's what our next panel is about. And to help us with that discussion and to set the tone and to set the scene, Laura Jorde from the DIHK will join us on stage.
Applause. Nice. So, hello, welcome. I'm Laura. Nice meeting you all. I look into a marvelous crowd here. And what do I see? I see passion. Somewhere over there, I also see curiousness. And when I look here, I see joy. And I think this is a good combination. And a good crowd. So keep that energy for the next 45 minutes with us, because it's going to be an awesome panel. Next to me, I have our two very honorable, distinguished speakers, Minister Dr. See Leng and Peter Voser. Please give them a loud welcome. So, it is really an honor also for me to be hosting this beautiful panel here. So a thanks and a shout out to the organizers to give me this opportunity, and especially the trust, I think also a little bit in the next gen here. So thank you very much. So, as you can see, I'm a little bit nervous, but I learned yesterday from Vladimir Klitschko that he also still is nervous. So I think it's okay, because we are all on a learning path. And about learning, we're going to talk later indeed. So the panel's title is Future-Proofing Industry, How to Confront Demographic Change. And what we're going to do in the next 45 minutes is to look from a business perspective with Peter, and then to look from the politics perspective with the minister on how we can answer the demographic change. So what can we do to tackle that? To kick things off, and before I'm going to introduce our honorable speakers, I would love to pose a question to you, just to set the scene a little bit. So in my research of this panel here, I found an interesting, but also a little bit worrying statistics. It's a projection from Eurostat. So Eurostat has dig deep and looked into the numbers of the population for 2100. And my question to you would be, what do you think? What they project? Assume the working age group of people is aged between 20 and 65 years. Do you think that number will decrease by the year 2100? Please raise your hand if you think yes. Okay, please raise it again so I can see and connect here a little bit, okay? Okay, it's half-half. That's really interesting. So I would love to hear a quick insight into why you think the number would decrease. Can you raise your hand again? Who wants to speak up, please? You turned it down too quickly. Please give me a hand again. Who thinks it will decrease? Okay, I see a hand, and the mic is just next to you. That's awesome.
Great.
So why do you think it would decrease?
So we see a population getting older and older, and people are getting less children, and it's a general trend, not only in Europe, but in every country in the world, that people are starting to have less children. So there is a lack of natural replacement.
Yes.
of our population. So I think that will be the main reason for the
Exactly.
increase of this number.
Exactly, beautiful. You spotted it right on. So an applause for him, please. It's a decreasing fertility rate, but also an aging population. And then what I found and thought like, oh wow, that's extreme, is that the group of people aged 80 and over 80 will be bigger by 2100 than the group of people aged below 20 years. I see some nodding. I would have not thought that. I think that's worrying. And also, the group of people in the working age group will be smaller than the group of people above the age of 65. So I hear some whispering. I think that's quite impressive. And it could make us panic, but don't panic, please. Because we are here with two very distinguished experts on the topic. And our mission for this panel really is to look into and dive deep into how we can tackle the demographic change. So first, we will look into how to develop, reskill, and really like win talent for companies. And then we will also look into how we can make use of automation and AI to really foster productivity. So for the next half hour, we will quickly have some opening remarks from our two panelists here. And then we will have a small conversation on this panel. And then we will also get in contact with you. So stay awake, stay aware, and keep the good energy, because later it's on you to keep this discussion alive. So I'm, as I said, honored and grateful for both perspectives we can have here in the next half hour. So please, again, give a very warm welcome to the Minister, Dr. See Leng. It's nice to have you here. And to Peter Voser. Nice to have you. I'm very grateful. So both of them took quite a journey to get here. The minister just arrived this morning from Singapore. Yes. So first, let me introduce Minister Dr. See Leng.
Hello, everyone.
Since 21, you serve as Minister for Manpower and Second Minister for Trade and Industry of Singapore. And in my research, I learned that you are a very optimistic and positive person. And I came across the sentence, or the motto really, the sky is the limit. And your own impressive career really truly embodies that slogan, I would say. Because after attaining a master's degree in medicine and business, you have managed a number of companies. And right before joining the Singaporean government, you were CEO of one of the globally largest listed integrated healthcare providers.
That's a long time ago.
That's a long time ago, yeah. So now to our second speaker, Peter. Peter is chairman of the board of directors at ABB. He has served and still serves at multiple other companies, and currently he is member of the board at IBM Corporations and Temasek Holding, the latter also being a Singaporean company. I think I can say with confidence that Peter is really a distinguished international leader, because throughout your career you have cultivated a really international perspective. In that, you have also built a very strong bond to Asia, and in particular to Singapore, and you are also an honorary citizen of Singapore. What I also found quite impressive is that he manages to balance the international perspective, but also the local roots. And he's also in the board of trustees of the Gallen Symposium, which I think shows that really nicely. Both of them know each other for quite a while already, so I hope we can have a little bit of an intimate situation up here.
Okay, let's go.
Let's give your input first to the audience,
okay,
and then we go and have a coffee. So, I would love to start with the opening statement from the Honorable Minister. Please, Minister, can you give us a little bit of an insight what you understand and how you understand the scarcity of labor and how you address as Singapore the demographic pressures on its workforce and also on its economy, please?
Thank you, Laura. It's actually a nice, cool afternoon. The sun is out. I'm pretty sure all of you would enjoy the time outside rather than sit in here. So I'll do my best to keep you engaged. And I must say that first and foremost, I want to really congratulate the team for putting this whole thing together. As I heard, it's all entirely, from ground up by the students, for the students and for everyone here. And the way it's been organized, the impeccable nature of the program itself, I think it's one of those things that we really have a lot to learn from. So thank you very much to the organizers. And therein lies this intergenerational focus on the theme of this year's symposium. It is really from a generation to generation, and I hope after this symposium it can go beyond generations so that it becomes a self-perpetuating continuation of all of the drive, all of the ambitions, and all of the aspirations. Now, coming back to Singapore, I think most of you here, if you have heard of the country itself, will know that we are a very small, tiny little spot right at the tip of this peninsula called Malaysia, Peninsular Malaysia. And of course, we're surrounded all around by our regional Southeast Asian neighbors. They are significantly larger. So in terms of the land size, we're just about 700 over square kilometers. I was told that you could drive from one end of Switzerland to the other in about three plus hours. In Singapore, you can probably do that in about 40 minutes. So you appreciate the size. Now, of course, we don't have any natural resources. And in fact, every Singaporean who is born, every permanent resident who lives there, and everyone who has come in contact with or who has lived there will understand the constraints that we face. And in fact, while people see that as a constraint, we constantly look at these constraints as opportunities. So you can say that by virtue of the fact that we live, we breathe, we walk, we live constraints, that has become part and parcel of our DNA and our way of life. So broadly, without going too much into it, I can talk for all day, but in keeping to the timer that is running, I want to focus us on 4 big issues. Now, for us, having had to live with the constraints for all those decades since our independence, we have constantly been tweaking our policies to ensure that we continue to remain open, connected to the world. We are welcoming of human talent, global talent from all over. And we constantly invest in making sure that we build the ecosystem that continually learns, relearns, improves, and innovate to create new paradigms, making significant, sometimes even quantum leaps into the different type of space so that we maintain that energy, that momentum, and that vibrancy within our system. So to that end, in terms of the growth, we pursue productivity-driven growth, high productivity-driven growth, high value-added growth. And as a result of that overarching principle, in terms of how we look at it from the macro perspective, we invest significantly in our people. So from the time a child is born, from all aspects of ensuring that we provide incentive to parents for them to be able to bond with the kids, to take care of the kids, we give them all measures of leave, maternity leave, paternity leave, and of course, we also then plan out the program, right, in terms of helping to subsidize significantly early childhood education, pre-nursery type of education, nursery education, eventually to kindergarten, and then all through primary school, secondary school, tertiary type of education to beyond postgraduate education. So at every stage of a Singapore citizen or permanent resident, we invest significantly in making sure that not only do they get the best skill sets based on their own interests, their own wants, and their own calling, and their own passion, and what they find fulfilling. On top of that, after they graduate, within a few years, we top up the learning. Because you and I know today, with this age of rapid disruptions, rapid pace of change, skill sets go into obsolescence very quickly after we graduate. So we then come up with a whole slew of what we call CET, continuing education and training investment. So with that, once they reach around about 40, we come up with a mid-career transition program for them to upskill, to reskill, and to make sure that they stay on top of the game, to make sure that they keep abreast of all of the latest development. Beyond that, throughout the mid-career, from 40, 50 onwards, we invest in them to make sure that they continue to undergo structured career training pathways with companies, career conversion programs, all the way right up to retirement. And we promote constant job longevity, career trajectory by raising the retirement age and also the re-employment age. So those are the type of investments we put into our people to make sure that we continue to nudge them, incentivize them, encourage them, inspire them, and spur them to higher productivity, value-added type of industry. Then we remain connected to the world. So all of our workplace policies, our manpower policies, is aimed at imbibing learning from the best from all over the world. Hence, we have a very open talent attraction program, and we have different pass types from the One Pass. Some would say that the One Pass, which stands for Overseas Networks Expertise Pass, is a bit of a mouthful, all right? To put it simply, it's the one and only pass you ever need, all right? So then you have the employment pass. We have the different pass types to make sure that at different segments it's a very differentiated strategy, so that all foreign talent that comes in will find it easy to complement our local workforce and grow together. At the same time, we also invest significantly in R&D, in making sure that we spur innovation. We have all measures of grants to help the workers to improve themselves. Now, working with just the workers is just one part of the equation. The second part is we also significantly invest in businesses, in the small, medium enterprises, in the medium-sized to the large local enterprises, and also the foreign large investments into Singapore, by making sure that the grants help them to improve their productivity. Some of the businesses need redesign. We have productivity solutions grants to help. And these are very generous grants given to companies to help them to pivot, to transform. So we call that a very big part of it, part of this industry-driven industry transformation maps, alongside with job transformation maps to help companies pivot, to stay relevant. The last bit really underscores and forms the foundation of how we have been able to continue to build the social compact moving forward, and that is this tripartism. We have enshrined that as one of our pillars, where the government works with the labor movement, the unions, and we work with the businesses, the employers, to come together collectively to suss out what is developing the world around us, the region around us, and how do we work in uplifting our workers, at the same time allowing businesses to make good profits, to move together collectively. So we get buy-in from employers, we get buy-in from employees, and we get buy-in from the population at large. So that sort of gives you a very broad summary of how we work, how we build social cohesion, how we provide consistency, predictability, transparency in terms of our policy making, and allow businesses to plan 10, 30, 50 years ahead. I hope that sort of gives you a very broad summary.
I think it gives a marvelous broad summary. Please applause. What I really heard is a very human-centered perspective on every person in Singapore, really. So I love that. Thank you for outlining it.
You're right. Yeah. It's at the core of it all, it's all about you.
Yeah. Nice. That's a good move. Now it's all about Peter. Peter, for you, we have prepared a little bit the opening question. In the light of the workforce pressures, what is the current state of businesses in Europe, really? And maybe a little bit in comparison to Singapore, because you have the Singaporean perspective. And how does economy and business really respond to the demographic change?
Okay, thanks, Laura. Thanks, Minister, as well. So let's start with the state of the business. So the global economy has now returned to growth following the pandemic. And during the past few years, most businesses have become much more resilient. They have adjusted to inflation, especially to high energy prices. Many actually have made their supply chains more robust, and we all have learned to expect the unexpected. So the big question mark now is it the calm after the storm, or is it the calm before the next storm? Now, I leave that to all of you to give an answer on that one. But even if things are getting a little bit more stable from a business perspective, I'm not talking geopolitics now, big mega trends are forcing businesses to change. There is the global challenge of climate change on the one side, but also the need to accelerate the energy transition. Just as much of a challenge, though, is the need of Europe to prepare itself for massive demographic change. There are some statistics here. So the net number of what we will lose over the next 10 years is around 50 million jobs, 50 million people retiring in Europe. So that's what we have to replace. I come back to that, how we can do that. So when we think about our theme, which is really scarcity and demographic change, most people focus on population dynamics. They think of the aging societies in Western Europe and China and talk about the skills gap and the war over talent. Now we should look beyond that, the mere demographic challenge, and consider how scarcity itself affects people. I think we heard from the minister how they're doing that in Singapore. So experiencing scarcity or fearing that one might experience scarcity has a direct impact on people's behavior, both as customers on the one side, which we are serving, but also as employees. Now, scarcity means that people do worry about their job security. They worry about what they do after the academic kind of study years or after the dual vocational training they've had. They worry about their savings and the pensions. Can they afford housing? Can they also have the access to basic things like water, like food, and energy, for example? So security results not only in a social divide, but also in a generational divide. Gen Z and Gen Alpha have just entered or will soon enter the workforce. But they have already lived through 2 global economic crises, 1 pandemic, see the return of war to Europe and Middle East, as we heard last night, experienced an energy and the cost of living crisis, are the first generation which really have to live through their entire life through climate change. And now we are facing one of the most dramatic technology changes, which is artificial intelligence. So all these experiences of scarcity have resulted in 2 generations which really deeply rooted feelings of uncertainty, even fear, and the understandable lack of optimism. So now, what does that mean for global companies? Scarcity is not just a demographic challenge, it is a psychological challenge as well. We must not forget that the challenge of demographic change and scarcity depends very much on where you live. If you're in Europe, Japan, and very soon in China, We have rapidly aging societies with a distinct shortage of young people. They will soon face a huge gap between the jobs on offer and the young talent available. Meanwhile, we heard this also in the morning from our co-chair, Africa, India, Southeast Asia and the Middle East. We have many countries with abundance of young talent, but potentially a distinct shortage of either jobs or capacity to provide skills. So how can we future-proof industry? Many companies will soon face a significant shortage of talent. In Europe, large numbers of highly skilled people are set to retire within the next decade or so, as I mentioned the number, resulting in dramatic, in my opinion, shortage of labor. So our automation and robotics will be key to overcome these challenges. This has a positive effect on the one side, which also automation and robotics will make manufacturing in Europe now more cost efficient, so companies can actually manufacture closer to the consumers again, closer to home, which also addresses the sustainability issue. So I've always talked in the media the reindustrialization of Europe, and I think we can do a lot on that side if we use the tools in the best way. So already many of the organizations face skill shortages. This will intensify as new technologies and big megatrends like decarbonization of our energy system impact industry. We really will face a skills mismatch. Some skills will simply not be in much demand anymore, while a new generation of jobs require new skills. To future-proof the skills mix, companies and countries must invest in constant upskillings and people changing careers with reskilling. Now, in the past, we talked a lot about the costs, and Singapore has addressed this because the state actually put in significant money. So I would say today, I think the cost will be actually not a problem in the future. And this has to do with artificial intelligence. Because actually the training now will become much shorter and it will become cheaper. It's going to be easier to leapfrog as a person, and it's going to be easier to learn. We have to use it in the right way, but I think this needs to be at the center of the reskilling and the upskilling in the future. So artificial intelligence is not all bad or fear, it is also going to help us on this side. So it's a skills leveler going forward. And it will benefit more or less everybody, because the highly skilled people, they will get better. And the average performers will also get better. So we have those two elements to take into account as well. So 2 decades ago, we all said we will all become a digital company. I predict we now become an AI company, all of us, because it's going to be part of the daily business which we do. Now, countries with a huge pool of young people have the potential for exponential growth. There is no doubt here. And even in times of scarcity, and we heard this many times this morning, that scarcity is an opportunity and therefore can also lead to growth. And I think if we do the reskilling and the upskilling in the right way, this will help us. So businesses have to step up and invest in youth development, education and training. They have to build diverse and inclusive workplaces that A, attract young talent, and B, foster creativity and innovation. A strong focus on entrepreneurship is absolutely key at government level and through incubators, difficult word, within companies can also deliver the jobs growth that demographic change demands. Let me give you 2 short examples, and one from Singapore and one from my country, Switzerland. The start is one in Switzerland. You know, ABB was the founder, and it's now running and has invited lots of companies to do the dual vocational training. And the way we do this, first half year, a student, 14, 15, 16 years old, goes to school. Then goes for 1 year to work, goes back to school, another year to work. But when they go into the working environment, what we do, we pair them with experience. We pair them with elder people, elder employees. So The older ones can actually learn a lot from these new generation geeks, what it means to use digital and artificial intelligence, whilst the younger ones actually do experience from or gain the experience from the elderly workers. This actually works very well, and our center is in Baden for those who are interested and can always have a look there. Now, the example from Singapore is I'm also chairman of PSA, which is the biggest port and container handler in the world. And we are building the new port in Tuas in Singapore. Fully automated, full electric. We don't have actually much people anymore. For the Manpower minister, this was a headache a few years ago. But what we actually did, we have completely retrained and reskilled the workers. We are transferring them now to this fully automated port out in Tuas. And instead of actually doing the work in the yard, they sit in the operational room. They are very flexible with toy sticks now. They have been fully trained on all of these things. And I think that's a good example where you can really change from the jobs which are no longer needed into the next generation, which is very, very technology driven.
Peter, just with a look on the time.
One sentence.
Okay, I would suggest I just get the perspective of the minister on one thing, and then we get back to you. Is that okay?
Good, okay.
Cool. Because we haven't heard the perspective of the minister, whereas you talked about it, on automation and AI. So, Minister, how do you think automation and AI can be best leveraged to benefit the economy while still remaining really human-centered, which is at the core of your ministry? And in the pre-session, I've learned that you are also developing AI tools to develop your staff as well. So maybe you can outline that a little bit before we get back to Peter.
Sure. I thought I was going to be saved by Peter. Just to put it across, we have to embrace automation and AI, regardless of whether there's a fear of displacement and so on. What is going to happen for the foreseeable future, at least the next 5, 10, maybe even 15 years, is that people who are well-trained, who have prepared themselves, who have embraced AI and tech, these are the ones who's going to displace the ones who have not. Right? So those who have the AI skills will be more able to disrupt those who have not learned the skill. So the government, therefore, as far as the Singapore government, therefore, is concerned, we have put up a national AI strategy over the next 5 years. We have now dedicated this $1 billion, and we're going to develop sectoral centers of excellence where we not just train our locals. In fact, we have multiple partner agencies that we are now working with them to go out and train large swathe of our population to embrace AI, to be prepared for this that is coming. On top of that, we ensure that our undergraduates, our Institute of Higher Learnings, the ITEs, the technical institutes, the polytechnics, are also simultaneously investing, not just gearing up, they have geared up, but the number of courses in making sure that the students, by the time they graduate, they are adept in AI. Those are the broad directions, the broad directives that we do. On top of that, we go one step further. We work with the demand side. We have these industry transformation maps that we work with all of the business sector leads, the trade associations, the chambers, the business sort of CEOs to understand the trends of the industry over the next 5, 10 years. And we take active steps in making sure that we develop the job transformation map to support this industry transformation so that our entire workforce is ready and prepared to embrace this advances towards automation and artificial intelligence.
Ah, wow. I'm super impressed by what the government in Singapore and especially your ministry does. To me, it came across as very hands-on and really close to the people and the businesses. And I think that's always the key of a good government, right?
Our singular focus, Laura, is on our people.
Yeah.
Our people is our only singular resource. And if you look at every single level of our workforce, we try to make sure that there's a level playing field. We provide an equal level of opportunity for them. Of course, no one can guarantee that everyone can come up with an equal outcome, but at least for starters, we level the playing field for everyone.
Thank you, thank you. I think that's now also a nice bridge again to Peter's speech, because Peter, what I also heard in your speech is that you actually shape a very inclusive culture at ABB as well, and in the businesses you are heading. I would love to dive a little bit deeper into that, but you had another point which I don't want to take from you. So you can choose if you want to stay with your point or with the cultural question on how do you actually frame a learning and a good culture, you know, for people to...
Okay, my point was just, it needs leadership.
It needs leadership, yeah.
Leadership to get all of this done. And if the leader doesn't walk the talk and shows the right leadership, unfortunately, this will not happen. Now, as a company, you really need to drive this in the future. And in our company at ABB, roughly 70% of our products are already software, and now most of them are starting to have AI embedded in it. Now, if you have that technology drive, you need, the only other thing which is important in a company is actually human resources. Therefore, if you give money into the R&D to develop the projects, look at your HR side exactly the same way. You give R&D money to develop your people. And your people need to learn and get the training to be savvy on AI in order to develop themselves personally, but also therefore develop themselves for the company in order to have the right mix between technology and people. And as the minister just said, the technology cycles are getting so short now. What we have seen with ChatGPT, it took 18 months, and now in the past we were talking product cycles of 5 to 10 years. That's the history. Therefore, companies need to adapt their system in a much faster way, retrain people, reskill them, at the same time they develop the technology. It is not just that you do a little bit of a technology change and your product gets a little bit better. It is going to fundamentally be changed, and therefore your people need to be fundamentally changed. So therefore, automation and robotics will not replace people. It will just, we need different ones with different skills. So if you look around the world, those who have the highest density of robots have actually the lowest unemployment rates. Therefore, it's a myth that one does actually exclude the other one. If we get these two major assets of a company right, which is really human resources and technology, I think that's a growth opportunity which no company should miss.
Oh, that's super beautiful. So we have a call for leadership, and we have a call for investment into humans, but also into automation to bring it all together for the future. I love that perspective. Thank you so much. Before I end and close the session now, I promised a question from the audience. So I will get one question from the audience. Who has the most pressing question? And keep it really short and tight, please. Oh, wow. That is very unexpected. Well, then I give one last question. Is there a question? Did you see one, Peter?
No.
Oh, okay. Then I would give one last question. Before we end the session now. Do you see one? Yeah. Somebody is daring to ask a question. Could we please have the mic? Please just keep it very short and introduce yourself with your name, please.
You got another 6 minutes, huh? That's good.
Oh, we just got a gift. Nice, beautiful.
Hi, I'm Raghav, and I have it could be an ignorant question, so please pardon me for my impertinence. But I guess my question is, as technology cycles get faster, the workforce needs to be trained, and I understand that. But as a life of an individual, like we need to be continuously trained all our life. And I think the question is like, what is the physical argument for innovation now? Like, will there be a net positive impact of innovation for individuals in the world? Or are we just heading blindly towards a race where our neighbor innovates and so do we? And we keep, cutting each other off till there's no end. So my question is, what's the end goal of this innovation? Yeah.
All right. So the question is, what is the end goal of innovation? Maybe also, what is the motivation really of innovation? I would love to give that question to the minister, and then we also get Peter's point.
I'm a perpetual optimist.
Yes.
I always believe that in everything you do, there's an underlying reason, because nothing happens by chance. Nothing happens by chance. Nothing happens by chance. And I want to reinforce that. So, whether it is in innovation, whether it is in creativity, it's not about cutting off. It is about having that broader sense, and that is the purpose of today's symposium. It is about building it better for the next generation. You innovate, Mr. Raghav, right? You innovate so that the people that come after you will have a better crack at something else. You will make it that much easier for him to build upon your shoulder, rest on your shoulder, because you have become a giant by the time you have innovated, and then build even better so that the next generation and the successive generations that come after us will benefit. So we can go on and on into this thing. I'm happy to engage you if we have the opportunity privately. But I think, given the time constraint, I also want to leave it to my good friend Peter for his sights as well.
I think we always have had innovation over the last 2-3 centuries. I think this is the only way society can really prosper. If we stop innovation, I think then we would start to get into the Roman Empire, which normally dies after 100 years. So I think innovation is absolutely key. But I think your question also points towards the societal integration of innovation. And that's why I put so much emphasis on, I call it the HR, the human side and the innovation side. We need to get those two right, because we cannot overstretch the human side by just outpacing them on the innovation side. And I think that is really the fundamental thing which we need to get right over the next 5 to 10 years, that we can further innovate. And I think innovation should always, in my opinion, and I think the minister just said to say, should actually be to the benefit of current and future generation, to be the benefit of society. I think if we get that equation right, I think it's the right way to go. And I have a statistical question to you. So you hear a lot about startups, successful startups, and everybody talks about the young people in this room. They're all successful ones. There's a Harvard Business Review which actually will tell you that the highest number of successful startups is from people in the 40s and the 50s. And I would expect those 40s and the 50s also to be very conscious about societal impact. I think the younger generations are already there, but we also need to make sure that the others are there as well. So it is very important that this equation between innovation and society is across all dimensions of society, but also across the whole age bracket. So,
Beautiful, thank you. I hope your question was answered. Thanks for posing it. All right, then I think we are coming to an end now of this session, and I would love to close it with a huge thanks for coming in and spending the time with us. Thank you so much, Minister and Peter.
thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Peter.
Well done.